Welcome to this edition of the Wonderbury podcast.
I'm Brian.
I'm Dave.
And you can find us online at wonderbury.com.
And I am D. Wonderly on Twitter.
Or I'm Brian Keysbury, anywhere the internet can be found.
You can leave us a comment on a plethora of places. You can stem it from the website. Check for the link in the description. Yeah.
Brian. Double dog dare ya.
Brian.
What?
We're back.
Hi, buddy.
Season 2. It's been a while.
Yeah. So.
Been a while.
Yeah, just a couple months. It's all right.
Yeah. I think what we figured it was the end of November. It's the last time we released one of these episodes.
Yep.
And I know we hadn't forgotten about everybody. There was just a lot of stuff happened, and it took us a while to kind of get back on feet. How what?
I mean, nobody messaged me, so I forgot all of our listeners.
Well, you may have. I had a bunch of people asking me what the hell happened, so yeah, season 2, and new year, new season, new format, new style for podcast.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
And I try to do like every other week.
Yeah.
And make them a little longer, a little more freeform.
Yep.
And
more space.
More space.
A lot more spacey.
I'm pretty spacey already.
Yeah, so the idea with the podcast is that looking over the data from the past year that we had amassed is us talking about space, which is something that we're both extremely, extremely passionate about, was very, very popular.
Mm-hmm.
And us kind of being more freeform to a certain extent was also popular. People liked having individual topics, but in the time space that we had, delving deeper into these topics wasn't something that we could do very well. And
people really liked it when we were talking about smoking hot space bodies.
Yeah, pretty much. So, the space ones were very, very popular. So we're going to kind of focus the podcast more on, a bit for our personal lives, and there's a lot of people like that, and a lot more on space. The idea of going every 2 weeks instead of weekly is it frees us up for more time to do some other project shows and stuff that we've kind of wanted to branch out and do.
Yeah.
So Brian's got some stuff that he wants to do. I got some stuff I want to do. I think we can do some really cool stuff in the coming year.
Yeah, and I'm working on some new VR projects on the side, and trying to put together another Wonderbury show. Maybe. I still haven't got all my good ideas hashed out yet, so.
And I'm kind of coming up with more kind of settling over toward tech news, and even possibly a how-to kind of more educational show in the works.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how those pan out. And there's going to be a lot more gaming. Whether it's both of us together or individually, there'll be more gaming. There'll be some live stream stuff that we'll do.
Yep.
It should, I think it'll be alright. Minecraft won't be the only game we're playing. I've got other games that interest me, from Kerbals and doing space stuff that way to been playing way too much PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, so there might be some of that going on. We'll have to see what happens.
I've just been playing a lot of Minecraft.
Yeah, I need to start playing that more again. Badly.
Yeah,
I had some Minecraft ideas that I want to do.
Yeah, I ought to just hop on my realm someday and go gallivanting around.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, I got some ideas, and I probably ought to do that. So the other thing to look forward to is we're going to be working on our Patreon. Um,
Yep.
there has been a lot of changes that have happened in the past several months with YouTube and ads and ad revenue, and the the ad system on YouTube is slowly drying up, and it's becoming more. I don't like using the word controversial, but that's kind of the way it's been going. And
Hmm.
so we kind of want to, um, kind of want to get. I want to get away from utilizing YouTube's ads service, and I
Yeah.
think that with as we get more viewers, we can do things with Patreon. We can do things with other direct donations, so that we can spend more time. We can spend more effort in some of these other things that we want to do. Um, right now it's kind of two guys in an office is hours away from each other and doing this, but there's we eventually want to do more stuff together, and we want to expand this a little bit further. And unfortunately, neither of us are rich enough for stuff like that, so we're trying to figure out a different way of doing this without it being intrusive and without it being, in your face type of stuff.
Yeah. And, we'd like to try to do more stuff with listeners too, and other people. Um, just to make a community of it. Like I
Yeah.
know we have listeners that game as well, so being able to have time that we can set to play a game with somebody.
Yeah, I'm building. I'm in the process right now of putting together a Discord server for us.
Cool.
And if you want to come in, if we happen to be online doing something, you can chat with us. You guys can chat with each other. We can have game stuff where we can play games together. We can do all sorts of stuff. I mean, there's I have a gaming idea that I've been thinking about for a while. I think would be a lot of fun, and it could be a lot of fun to do with people as well. So there's a lot of stuff that we kind of are moving the ball forward, but we don't want these videos on YouTube to be all riddled with ads, and that just kind of. So Patreon is kind of the way we're going to be going on this. Patreon and direct, like I said, direct donations. So, kind of keep an eye on the website and for more of those announcements, or the Facebook page. I promise to be updating the Facebook thing a lot more in the future with what's kind of going on, and be more communicative that way. So,
How about get the Discord set up this week, and we'll add that as a dollar, like on the dollar tier level.
yeah, yeah, come join us and play with us and talk to us and stuff. I mean,
For just $1 a month.
yeah,
I think it's set
dollar.
up monthly.
Yeah, it's not bad. Well,
Yeah.
but like I said, we'll go through. I'll update the Patreon. We'll get some real good stuff going with the Patreon, and just really enjoy expanding this thing up as a little bit further. And if you don't want to, you don't have to. That's perfectly fine too. We're still going to be kicking stuff out.
And I think the top tier, I don't remember what I set the dollar amount at, but the top tier for Patreon was you get to ride in the Tesla Roadster with us when we get one,
Yeah.
which
Of
will
course,
probably include, like automated driving while we game or whatever. Who
yeah. Who
knows?
knows?
Who knows?
Who knows? We'll keep the goofy ones in there. We'll have some serious ones as well.
Maybe we'll strap it to a rocket and send it to Mars.
Hey, you never know. Stranger
You never
things
know.
have happened the last couple months.
Actually, nothing. Stranger than strapping a Tesla Roadster to a rocket and sending it to Mars is Elon Musk strapped his Tesla Roadster to a rocket and sent it to Mars.
Well, he's sending it past Mars.
Well, yeah, but accidentally. Accidentally
So
overshot Mars. Whoops.
before we get into the whole space thing, um, a lot of people have asked, and this is kind of my first outside of personal Facebook and stuff. The reason why we've been gone since the end of November. We had talked about my mom was going in for a biopsy on a new growth that was going on, and it came back positive for the same cancer she had the surgery on. And it was spreading faster than they'd be able to cut it out. So in the beginning of December, or late November, beginning of December, she went to hospice care. And a week before Christmas on the 20th, Mom passed away. And it really affected the family pretty hard. Her going into hospice really affected me pretty rough, which is why we kind of stopped recording. And I couldn't... it was hard for me to hold things together to kind of talk about what had happened. So I kind of went through the grief period, kind of went through the depression period, pulling myself out of that now, and I'm back, and we're back.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate all of the thoughts, the positive feelings, the prayers, whatever you felt that you needed or wanted to do. I really did appreciate that. And so yeah, it's been weird adjusting to life without doing that. During the course too, I stopped driving for Uber completely, and I've started shopping with Shipt, which has been an adventure all in itself. But it's less miles in my car, so that's been fun. But yeah, that's kind of where I was at with that, and it's it's been rough, but I'm ready to get back into things now.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's nothing. I always wondered, like, oh, what do I say? I'm like, I don't know. There's nothing I could say to make things better. Just
No,
kind of is what it is.
But just knowing that people's support and the thoughts were there was awesome, and I do appreciate it.
So
what you, yeah, So
my
that's
last few months.
been my months.
Apparently I've gotten addicted to tea. I had a $200 shopping cart of tea, just tea, like pure loose leaf tea. That was all my shopping cart was, and I just had, like, when I went to check out, just kind of stopped. I was like, maybe I ought to back this up a minute. So, yeah, that's fun. Trying to think what else. We got a couple more of the Yi lights.
Yeah, I've expanded my home, my hue a little bit.
Yeah.
I got back patio area. I got a new light and a motion sensor that automatically turns on and off for that, which is kind of nice.
Nice. Yeah, I set that up with I have a security camera on my porch now.
Oh, right.
And it has motion detection built in, so that sends an IFTTT trigger to the light that's on the porch. It gives me a 20-minute timer. I guess 20 minutes.
Nice.
Yeah, so
mine
turns on for 20 minutes and then turns off that way. Once it sees somebody, it pops right on.
Yeah, mine does it in 5. I have mine set at 5.
Nice.
But it's pretty much the steps. You either walk outside the house, inside the house, or walk down the steps to the basement. And then it's the motion detector is good enough to see all the angles through there. So either, when you put your first step on the steps to come back upstairs, it instantly turns on. And it's kind of nice that way. Oh, and we got a cat.
Yeah, I did too. Well, I guess we got the cat in maybe August or September.
Yeah, we got a cat for the little one for Christmas.
Yeah, ours just
So
showed up and started living on our porch. So, didn't just
No, I went and did the whole shelter rescue thing.
nice.
So that was real awesome. She's been a welcome addition to the family, that's for sure.
So, space.
Oh my goodness, a lot of things have happened in space over the last few months. Uh,
Yeah, Falcon Heavy,
yeah,
most powerful rocket of all time.
66% successful in landings.
Yeah.
Uh,
two
that was
two out of
probably
three ain't bad.
that was probably one of the coolest shots I've ever seen. Is watching the two boosters return back, and you could see them both in the same shot, one kind of
Yeah.
behind the other, both landing. That was really phenomenal, and I wish that the core would have survived it. But all things being equal, it's still an amazing accomplishment for space travel. It's the largest rocket set up since Saturn V,
Yeah,
and that's
and it was
something
still what,
else.
like twice as powerful as what Saturn V. Like they gave some ridiculous number.
Oh, Saturn
Wow.
V was insane.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
that's
it was.
it's that's bonkers insano numbers.
Yeah. My
I think the BFR will probably be. I think it's that one's more powerful, if I remember correctly, than the Saturn V was.
well, I thought Falcon Heavy was more powerful than the Saturn V.
No, it
And
was.
Didn't
Let me look this up real quick. I think it was the most powerful since Saturn V. Falcon Heavy versus the classic Saturn V.
Saturn V, by the way, developed by a Nazi.
Yep.
In case you didn't
Werner
know.
von Braun are in the birth of our entire space program.
Yep. So, there's that bit of trivia for you guys.
The Saturn V was also taller than the Statue of Liberty.
Dang.
Where is this?
So,
Alright, so Falcon Heavy can put a payload of 140,700 pounds into low Earth orbit at an inclination of 28.5 degrees. Also reach space velocity and send 3,500 pounds to the moon. The Saturn V, its low Earth orbit throws weight over twice the Heavy's at 310,000 pounds with 30-degree inclination. And it can loft 107,100 pounds into lunar orbit. So, yeah. Where the Falcon Heavy does come out is in its economy. The estimated cost for Saturn V in today's dollars is a whopping $1.16 billion. Meanwhile, the upper estimate for Falcon Heavy is $90 million. So in today's dollars, the Saturn V would cost $1 billion to launch, whereas the Falcon Heavy is about 90 million. Now the
Pretty cheap.
BFR is going to be even worse than that. The big Falcon rocket.
Yeah, right. Big Falcon rocket.
So the estimated so for the BFR looks like that low Earth orbit payload will be about 330,000 pounds. And who knows how much it can take elsewhere. I think it's going to be freaking enormous, though.
Mm-hmm. So my favorite part of the launch was once the capsule got out into orbit and the shields came off, and then you got the view of the Roadster with Starman sitting in it, and then all of a sudden the music kicks in.
Yeah.
And I was so giddy at that moment. I was just grinning like ear to ear, like, go, Starman, go! Go to Mars, man. Like, just go.
Yeah, that was pretty. That kind of brought a tear to my eye watching that whole thing, because I understood, once again we're jumping, kind of like when he landed for the first time. It was like another big milestone for the crazy one.
Yeah.
And it's just fun to watch how these things are just keep going and going and going.
Yeah, and just getting better and better all the time, too.
Oh, yeah. And the reusability of the things like the boosters and eventually the center core and eventually the fairings. Speaking of fairings, excuse me, they just almost caught that last fairing.
Yeah.
From, what was that, last week that they did the launch? A few days ago? Last week?
A couple days ago.
But a couple days ago. That's right, because they were supposed to relaunch one this weekend, but they kind of put it on hold.
Yeah, and they said that they missed it by maybe 100 meters.
Yeah.
But it still survived. So it came out fine. Fine enough that they're still going to try to reuse it.
So,
and
for those
they were
of
able
you
to
that
grab it because they were so close.
That don't know what they're doing here, they have a boat with effectively a spider web style net that they're literally catching this thing out of midair as it's falling back with a parachute.
Yep.
It's just
that was amazing.
It is the most ingenious, dumbest thing on the planet for setup wise. That just happens to work, and they almost got it, which is just I don't even I'm almost at a loss at what to think about this. It's so asininely, insanely, juvenilely amazing.
Yeah, and that's what they said. Yeah, we're gonna try to catch the fairing. I was just sitting there wondering, like, how does that even work? And then they showed a picture of the ship, and I'm just dumbfounded, like, is that real? And sure enough, that was the ship. It was just a little dingy-looking boat with a big-ass net on the top, and just
the first time I saw a picture of that ship, I could have sworn that I was reading an Onion article.
Yeah, that's what I think it was actually in Reddit, in not the Onion, where I read it. I was looking at the picture, and I'm just like, I don't know about that. It looks silly.
It looks like a boat, like a fishing trawler, like a fairly long boat. It's called Mr. Steven. It has 4 giant arms off the back end of this thing that spread out almost like it goes out this way, and there's a giant net in between this, and they run the boat underneath the fairing as it's coming down and catch it.
Yep. So you know what that was? I think that was from the new his new satellite launch.
Yeah, that's that
Keystar?
broadband anywhere. Yeah, anywhere on the planet, high speed broadband to anywhere on the planet. Satellite constellation he wants to put up.
Yep.
Which
The
is
first two
phenomenally
of,
amazing idea.
6,000 satellites, I think.
Something like that.
Somewhere out. It seemed like it was like the high 5,000s. So I'm just going to guesstimate around 6,000. Maybe more. Elon Musk doesn't seem to be the kind of person who underdoes things.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, in 2017, SpaceX submitted regulatory filings to launch a total of nearly 12,000 of these things to orbit by the mid-2020s.
Whoa.
But yeah,
so I undershot a little.
Global broadband internet.
Wait, so how many, what was the expectation for 2019 then? I think that was maybe 57.
I'm looking.
7.
Now it's up too. Now, and that also includes, because these things are going to be small satellites and they're going to be in low Earth orbit. So the problem with low Earth orbit is that there is still atmosphere, very small amounts, but there is atmosphere in the low Earth orbit, and it will, over a gross amount of time, slow things down, and they'll re-enter. That's why Mir ended up re-entering. That's why the ISS requires a boost and every once in a while to re-orbit itself. Because where those things are in low Earth orbit, there are still bits and pieces of the atmosphere that are up there, and obviously atmosphere causes drag, and thanks to Newtonian physics, we know that the drag will slow it down, and when you slow down, you're no longer in orbit, because all an orbit is that you're going forward at the same speed or faster than you're falling, so you're pretty much falling toward Earth and missing, is what orbit is.
Yep.
So a lot of these other satellites, I'm not sure how big the constellation is going to be, but a lot of these are a redundancy system, because as one falls and comes back down and burns up in the atmosphere, they need to be able to send another satellite up and replace it. So I don't know if the entire constellation is going to be that many satellites, or if he's planning ahead for a lot of these relaunches.
Yeah, I wonder if he's planning like half redundancy or something.
Yeah, because they're in November 2016, SpaceX filed an application with the FCC for a non-geostationary orbit satellite system in the fixed satellite service using the Ku and Ka frequency bands. The plan was here it is. It would consist of 7,518 satellites to follow. So it looks like around 7,500 in the constellation, and there'd be a smaller group of about 4,400 that would orbit a little bit lower.
Well, we will plan to keep you updated as more satellites arise.
Yeah, as this happens more and more, we're definitely gonna keep you guys updated on that, because this is
made a rising rising rocket joke, babe.
But over the last couple months, SpaceX isn't the only one that's kind of made waves in the space industry.
Yeah.
Japan, the Japanese Space Agency, has launched, and this was just earlier this month, earlier in February. They launched the tiniest rocket to carry a small payload satellite into space.
Cool.
So JAXA, which is the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency, they launched a rocket, the SS-520-5, smallest rocket to ever deliver a satellite into orbit. It's a modified sounding rocket that has a third stage, which helped bring it up in. The idea behind this, and there's another one that I'll talk about in a minute, which is a New Zealand company called Rocket Lab, launched a small rocket called Electron. So there's a kind of a push. While Falcon Heavy gets a lot of press for being larger and bigger, a lot of times the smaller setups kind of get lost in the everything. And the reason why these are a big deal is because they space and a lot of these smaller payloads are very popular. But the problem with smaller payloads is that they're usually tied to a larger launch. So if you're a scientist and you need to do a small payload, or you're a group and you want to put a small payload satellite into orbit or whatever, you typically have to wait until one of the larger payloads is going to be going up, and then you piggyback onto that payload as a weight requirement. Although the primary payload has priority, and if they go over or heavy, you can get bumped back down the list. So, for example, the Rocket Lab, their Electron satellite, is about 55 feet tall.
Right.
And it's very limited. It can only get it's capable of only getting between 330 and 500 pounds to lower Earth orbit, instead of the Falcon 9, which gets about 50,000 pounds up there.
Yeah.
But individual flights are only about $4.95 million for a launch, which is less than piggybacking onto some of these larger payloads. And you can set it up, and it's on your schedule, and you're not now defaulting to a larger payload schedule for getting stuff into space. And it's kind of amazing. Their first test of the Electron made it to space but failed to make orbit because they lost contact with the rocket during the flight. The second flight put a satellite in orbit. So these guys are doing some really cool stuff. The rocket carried 3 commercial satellites, a Dove Earth imaging satellite for the planet, and 2 Lemur satellites for Spire that track ships and weather. They've also announced that they're pretty much booked out for a lot of stuff, and there are a lot of people that are very, very interested, especially in the scientific community, of these smaller rockets and getting this stuff up there. So there is some really cool stuff happening in space that's not SpaceX related or Blue Origin. Which I haven't heard much from Blue Origin lately.
I haven't either. I've been hearing more about ULA. One of their things is they're going to start reusing their new rockets.
Of course they are.
Yeah, because
that's where they have to keep up.
Yeah, You know,
Um,
the whole point of SpaceX doing their reusable rockets was to drop the cost. You know,
yeah,
and now they're winning all the contracts because their cost to send something into orbit is cheaper immediately because they don't have to build another rocket. They just have to, shine it up, fill it back with fuel, and send it on its way again.
yeah.
And these are all these other competing companies. They're gonna have to keep up.
Um, One
And
thing
with
that Blue Origin, last thing that I remember them doing was the end of January, the beginning of February. I can't remember which. Um, they fired up and they did a static fire for their new engine for the New Glenn rocket, which is going to be their answer to a heavy payload system.
cool. It's
I
sad that
guess
by the time we see that launch, we're just gonna kind of be like, meh.
I won't. That'll be amazing.
Well,
Um,
and that's kind of what when watching the Falcon Heavy and seeing the like not seeing the main core land. Everybody was suspicious, and there was like 4 hours where people were like, "So what happened? What happened? Where did it go?" Nobody saw it land, and there's a lot. And then they finally said that it didn't make it, but then everybody was like, "Oh well, yeah, he's got another one. He'll get it right next time,"
well, I
because
mean,
we saw it
how
with the
many
Falcon
failure?
9.
Yeah, exactly. It's if you succeed the first time everything, you're learning a lot less than if you fail a few times before you get it right. As long as you're not failing in the same place multiple times, failure is an amazing thing. And I wish more people understood the importance of failure and the importance of that whole process, because without failure you don't learn from mistakes. Mistakes are very, very important, and they're not something to shy away from.
And
Making the
you,
same mistake multiple times, then you're just a dunce and you need to figure something out. But
it's the
failure in
weakest link.
itself is, yeah,
And once you identify your weakest link and you fix it and improve upon it, that's how you just continually get better. Now, I used to race a lot, um, and the race team I worked with, that's how the car would consistently get better and better. Is we if like something would break or something wasn't working right, we would replace it. But instead of buying the same parts that we had, we would get the next best or a couple more, like a couple levels up. That way, as we were going along, things were steadily improving and getting better and better and better. And so it was making things even last longer. Like you replace your stock brakes with the highest quality brakes you can get, and they're just going to last longer too.
yeah.
The quality is a lot better. So it's kind of, we're seeing kind of the same thing. I remember that was one of the issues with the Falcon 9 landings. Um, the feet, the pads, when it landed,
Yep.
weren't big enough. I don't remember the exact situation, but there was something that wasn't working right with them. And then on the next one, you could tell they were just completely redesigned.
Yeah.
And then they worked perfect. It's like, yep, that's why I'm throwing my money in his court. Like, yep.
So looking ahead at the launches, the upcoming launches, Falcon 9, the HipSat 3W TAC 6, that launch has been delayed because of issues or concerns with the fairing pressurization. Next big one after that, we in beginning of March 1st, the Atlas V is launched. So ULA will launch the Atlas V, and it's a geostationary weather satellite for NASA NOAA. And then after that, a week later, a Soyuz launch will be happening out of French. Aerospace Soyuz rocket will be launching, and that'll be at noonish Eastern on the 6th.
Cool.
And everything out there until another Soyuz launch for an ISS mission on the 21st. Everything else is kind of to be determined through March. So yeah, there's stuff coming up.
Yeah. Speaking of ISS, so back in December, I think, I bought a Pixel 2. And I got a Daydream VR headset.
Those things are amazing, aren't they?
Dude, I played some Quake in VR. I've never gotten so sick or so fast. It was ridiculous. Insane how, like, I got the settings kind of fine-tuned, so it's a lot better. That initial, like, you jump in and just there's a world moving around you, but your body isn't, and oh man, it was. I didn't make it 5 minutes, I don't think, and I took it off and I was pouring sweat. It's like, oh boy. So, anyways, Google Expeditions, it's like a VR learning app where you can go tour different places and it'll show you different things. They have a tour of the ISS, and it's pretty awesome. Like, seeing all the stuff was really cool. Some of the perspective was off, so it was hard to tell like how big the rooms were. You know, I was looking around and I thought, oh, this room seems kind of, big and roomy. Like, it seems like there's plenty of room here, and I turn and I look and there's a laptop that looks like it's 4 foot tall. I was like, well, maybe that's not right. But overall, it was pretty awesome. Like, being able to go in and see the different rooms in the ISS was really cool.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. ISS has kind of made the news a little bit. The U.S.'s kind of plans for the future of NASA and space, and this is going to come with the caveat of none of this is set in stone. This is all just recommendations and talk from someone who's changed his mind 9 different times since the beginning of this candidacy presidency. So, the administration is floating a proposal to return to the moon. Trump wants to go back to the moon. And one of his solutions for paying for it is for us to completely cease any and all funding with the International Space Station.
Yeah, because we put such a large percentage of our budget into that.
Oh, I know, right? So, whether or not that happens, the future of Americans in space could be at jeopardy outside of private companies and private corporations. And I'm not...
That's what Trump is here to do, man. Privatize all of America. Some of it's going to work and some of it won't.
I think he sees... I think he sees the benefit in governments. And I remember, I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson said it kind of this way, and I'm very loosely paraphrasing, is that we need governments for space still. Because governments for exploration, governments for those things, they take the risk. All of the risk for humans in space that SpaceX and all these other companies and these private companies are being able to piggyback on would never have happened if it wasn't for a government to take the risks with a budget without needing a return. Governments can do that sort of thing without having to have a dollar for dollar return on investment. Private companies, especially ones that answer to investors, have a much harder time doing a lot of these scary things without a path for return for investment.
Yeah.
You know, what sets SpaceX kind of apart is that it's run by someone who just doesn't care about cost as much. He has a lot of money and he wants to do these things whether there's a return on investment or not. Now, obviously, there's quite a bit of return on investment for the Falcon 9 and the space program and, you know, putting payloads and satellites into space. There is no return on investment right now that we can see in any foreseeable future to either go back to the moon or to go to Mars. There just isn't. And that's where I think having a government space program to push that envelope is so important. Now, don't mistake what we did in the 60s and getting to the moon as American ingenuity and, well, not American ingenuity, Americans' want for exploration. Exploration had zero to do with why we went to space and why we went to the moon. Yep. We were in a middle of a Cold War with an enemy nation, and this was a saber rattling. You know, you want NASA to go back. You want NASA to either go back to the moon or to go to Mars, especially Mars. If you want NASA to go to Mars within the next 10 years, get China to announce that they're going to put a man on the Mars by 2020. We'll be there next year.
Yeah. If us going to the moon at that time was essentially just us being like, you want to go, bro? You want to go? We'll do this right now, bro. Let's go. And
one thing that a lot of people forget about that was our last-ditch effort to win anything in the space race. We had lost everything at that point. We weren't the first to orbit. We weren't the first for a satellite. We weren't the first for people. We weren't the first for a woman. We weren't first for anything in space.
Nothing.
And
of course,
the landing on the moon was our first and truly only first victory out of that. Which is kind of mind-blowing and amazing when you think about it.
There's also the possibility that we didn't win that and the Nazis put a secret base in the moon back in the 40s.
Okay. Was that using their secret alien technology?
Yeah. I've seen the documentaries on YouTube, Dave. It has to be real.
I just choked on my water.
I've also recently decided that the Earth is not actually flat. So I was out digging the other day, and I was digging a hole, and I'm like, well, shit, if I'm digging a hole, it clearly is not flat like a sheet of paper. So the Earth has to be a cylinder shape, right? The Earth is a cylinder shape. It's not flat, it's a cylinder. Because that makes the most sense, Dave. If I can dig down, it has to be a cylinder, right?
Oh, yeah. No, it has to be. Absolutely has to be.
Mm-hmm.
But no, there's a lot of exciting, cool stuff happening in space.
Oh, speaking of which,
yeah.
crazy flat earther, and I can't remember his name.
They all blend
God,
together at
dude,
some point.
dude built a rocket. He was gonna go into space or
Oh,
or flat
that
space.
guy. Yeah.
Which I don't understand how that works for him either. I'm like, if it's flat, I don't know. Anyways, didn't make it.
Mike Hughes.
Mike Hughes, yeah.
Yeah, his
So I've been
homemade
trying to
rocket.
keep an eye on him too. Be interesting to see what he comes up with. It would be funny for him to get up there, and be in space and do an orbit and be like, crap. So, so I have a recommendation.
Oh.
If anybody wants to learn some just ridiculous stuff about space, there is a YouTube channel hosted by a guy whose name is Isaac Arthur. It is intense, and I've been watching a lot of it, and the Mega Structures playlist is amazing. It talks about Dyson spheres, hoop worlds, disk worlds. By the way, flat Earth comes from the disk world idea, which is essentially a shell world, which is a whole other type of thing. Anyways, the Mega Structures playlist is probably 3 to 4 or 5 hours long. Totally worth watching. A lot of really interesting stuff. A lot of like theoretical things.
Let's take a look at him.
So in depth. The guy is so in depth and so it's so good. Such a good
Is
show.
he legit or is he somewhat bonkers?
I honestly have no idea, man. I have no idea.
At least you're honest.
I tell people the same thing about myself though too, and they're like, "Are you for real?" And I'm like, I don't know. I'm probably just a figment of your imagination for all we know. So,
God damn it.
It is really good. He has a speech impediment, so his R's sound more like W's, but you kind of get used to that pretty quick. And he right at the beginning of every episode of every show, he tells you to just turn on the closed captioning. But there's a cute little graphic with the.
I'll have to give him a shot. I'll have to give him a shot and see what I think.
It is intense. It is intense. Watch the Mega Structures playlist. It will.
Yeah.
If it blew my mind, what? Never mind. If it blew my mind, that doesn't really mean much anymore. I was blown away by watching Cars in 4K. So, moving on.
Oh yeah. No, I think kind of when you wrap this up a little bit, I think that with kind of recapping a bit is we got a lot of fun stuff coming up, and we're trying to do more. Yep. And we want to do more than just be a weekly podcast. There's so much more that both of us have kind of dreamed above, and so much further that we want to push this thing. And I'm excited with moving the podcast to every 2 weeks. That frees us both up some time to where we can work on individual projects, we can work on other stuff together, and we can try to get different and more content kind of pushed out. And if there's anything you guys would like to see us do or talk about or whatever, let us know.
Yeah. I mean, we're everywhere for a reason.
Yep. Yeah, let us know. And the podcast will just still be us and a lot more space. And not just SpaceX and launches, but there's a lot more of really cool stuff happening. and going on up there, and we'll kind of cover a lot more of those topics.
I'd say probably 60% SpaceX.
Probably.
If I look at my news feed, I'm like, SpaceX, 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 ULA, SpaceX, 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 Blue Origin. So it's kind of hard not to.
Yeah. Now there's a lot of other really cool stuff going on.
Yeah. So
it's good. It's good to be back.
We'll figure it out in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And we'll see y'all then.
See you guys next time.